Halloween is this week and I've been struggling thinking of something to do for the holiday. I was thinking about listing off my top 10 favorite horror films, but horror is a little vague, and since I'm a pleb, my list wouldn't be much different from Watch Mojo's. So I decided to dig a little deeper and recommend 10 movies that fit for the season that I enjoy but are either underrated, underappreciated, or just seen as outright bad that I just don't see why. Why do people hate this movie? I mean, yeah, it's silly and campier than it was trying to be, but that's not really a deal breaker, at least not for me. The audience score is a bit more fitting, I think. Hide and Seek is a 2005 thriller starring Robert De Niro and Dakota Fanning, whose imaginary friend may or may not be real and also a murderer. It's a pretty fun watch if you've never watched it before, or if nothing else, the performances salvage the otherwise derivative script. Alright, I have no idea how I wound up with a copy of this movie back in the day. It's a made-for-TV movie produced by the Hallmark Channel. It was the fourth and final in Hallmark's Holmes series. It was also the only one in this set not based on one of the classic books. Famous detective Sherlock Holmes takes a case where it appears a vampire is assaulting people in Whitechapel. So yes, the whole plot is in the title, but it's still a methodical and enjoyable pulp-inspired thrill. Much like The Hound of Baskerville, a major thrust in the plot is how Holmes' skepticism allows him to see things the more superstitious citizen Ray wouldn't. It's pretty old hat, especially in a post-Scooby-Doo world, but on balance, it's better than a lot of Holmes films. Again, I can't think of a reason why so many people hate this movie. It's been a very long time since I've seen it, but it freaked me out as a kid. It's one of the few horror movies that actually gave me nightmares growing up. It's a pretty standard supernatural horror movie with a killer tooth fairy. There's a lot of jump scares, but also a fair amount of intense scenes. It was the first movie I ever saw that really tapped into my primal fear of the dark. On that note, it's really effective, especially for younger audiences. And by younger audiences, I mean people between the ages of like 8 and 12. I've seen public reception start to turn around on this film. Halloween was fantastic, one of the best in the entire genre. A case study of what makes great horror. Halloween 2 was a pretty standard sequel. Halloween 3 was the only time the franchise explored its original idea, which was to create an anthology series with different bad guys in each film. And this one got really crazy. Not enough people gave it a chance when it came out. Don't hold the lack of Michael Myers against it, it's pretty solid. This film used to be obscure, but has recently had a resurgence thanks to Gen X content creators doing videos about it on YouTube. Monster Squad isn't scary, but it's very much entrenched in the Halloween aesthetic. See, Halloween is more about conquering fear than living in it. This might just be the commercialization of the holiday, but while the general aesthetic is still ghosts and ghouls, most kids dress up as superheroes. Monster Squad tapped into that action comedy aspect of monsters, and it's a lot of fun. It's funny, well made, and has this cheekiness about it. It's not the best thing ever, but it holds up better than a lot of similar 80s kids films. Based on the classic Edgar Allan Poe short story, Mask of the Red Death is a 1964 Vincent Price passion project about a corrupt nobleman who hosts a massive party in spite of a deadly plague. This movie is actually pretty apt today. Regardless of how you think this film could echo COVID, this is a very intense film that drops on the pretext of the source material in favor of a satanic version of the main character, and a couple innocent leads trying to simply survive divine retribution against the insidious kingdom. It's not my favorite Vincent Price film, it's not even the highest ranking one on this list, but it's the most visually striking. While this film was pretty well received, it is trapped in the shadow of a better, more successful film that came out just 2 years earlier and has a very similar plot twist. It's World War II and Nicole Kidman and her kids stay in their British countryside mansion, but creepy stuff starts happening and they come to the conclusion that the house is haunted and something has upset the spirits. Saying anything more would be going into spoiler territory. Even if it is mimicking a certain other ghost movie, it is still an amazing twist, and honestly, this film takes it way further and is way more messed up once you know the truth. This is a movie I don't see anyone talking about. Triangle is an indie horror film from 2009. A group of dumb college kids get a boat and find an abandoned cruise ship out in the ocean. It seems innocuous at first, but then a masked person starts killing them one by one. The main girl has to steel her nerves and fight for her life in a pretty standard slasher affair. But the real kicker is that's just the first act. What follows is an absolute trip and one of the most ingenious twists I've ever seen pulled on this formula. This is the movie that gave me faith in the horror genre again, and it's been on my shortlist for a potential video for a while. This is another Vincent Price film that's very, very loosely based on a classic Edgar Allan Poe work. This time it's his masterpiece poem, The Raven. But the content of the poem is just the opening scene. What follows is a thrilling fantasy starring Vincent Price, Boris Karloff, Peter Lorre, and a young Jack Nicholson. It's creepy and kooky, and the sheer star power of its leads is captivating, all leading to one of the best wizard duels I've ever seen. And finally, this is another one that had a small resurgence due to internet content creators. The Haunting is the quintessential haunted house movie. A scientist invites a couple people to a large mansion in order to study their reaction to creepy occurrences. Is it all real? Is it all a sham? The movie doesn't give any clear answers as to what's going on, and it's a character study on how various people would handle a haunted house with no easy explanation. So those are the 10 films I recommend you watching this Halloween if you haven't already. What are your favorite Halloween staples? Comment below to let me know. I'm Mediocrity4, thanks for watching.